Welcome to the Steering Change Podcast, navigating through the commercial transportation industry in Alberta and beyond, powered by the Alberta Motor Transport Association. Here's your host, Kelsey Hipkin.
Hello, listeners of Steering Change. Welcome to part 2 of our 3-part series, Trucking, Past, Present, and Future. In our last episode, we hopped on a time machine and took you back to when trucking emerged in Alberta, and you heard from some of the voices of the province's commercial transportation past. Today we're looking at trucking, well, today. What is going on in Alberta today that impacts commercial transportation? For example, we've had a pretty busy 2025 already. We've seen increased efforts against what AMTA President Robert Harper calls the scourge of industry, Driver Inc. AMTA has released a 3-part video series on unscrupulous carriers on our YouTube channel, so you can check that out, and it'll be in the show notes. As well, following AMTA advocacy and collaboration with Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors, or TEC, the Alberta Carrier Excellence Safety Program, or ACES, launched on April 1st. This initiative replaced the Partners in Compliance program and offers a host of benefits to carriers who exceed minimum safety standards. Speaking of TEC, a Class 1 learning pathway was also launched in Alberta on April 1st. We had a podcast episode covering the ins and outs of that program from April 11th and are happy to bring you an update now that we're 4 months in. For this segment, we're joined by Alexandra Bennet, Director, Strategic Initiatives, Transportation and Economic Corridors. Alexandra, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So glad you could make it. To start, we'll throw you an easy one. Can you walk us through what the Class 1 learning pathway is?
Yeah, totally. So the new Made in Alberta Class 1 learning pathway replaces the previous mandatory entry-level training program, which lots of people probably know as MELT. So the new pathway is a flexible apprenticeship-style training model that's tailored to each individual, and it's designed to enhance driver skills, improve safety, and provide comprehensive training to new Class 1 drivers. The cool part is that phases of this program were developed in partnership with stakeholders in the transportation, driver training, and insurance industries. And there's some pretty neat updates for learners. So I'll just go through some of them. Like, for example, now we have new orientation materials that allow Albertans to see if commercial driving is the right fit for them before signing up for the whole training program.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We also have more flexible learning options that allow people to learn at their own pace and customize their learning based on their unique career goals. Part of that is we've implemented a new online learning management system called Moodle, and it allows learners to easily track their courses and training progress along the way. So we do have some online training now that people can take from the comfort of their home or a coffee shop, wherever they happen to be. So it allows, for more of that flexibility before they get into the cab, obviously.
Awesome. And Alex, how about commercial driving as a Red Seal designation?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So the Class 1 learning pathway is basically the basis on which Alberta intends to build a Red Seal designation for commercial driving. So right now, I know that industry has submitted a request to make commercial driving a designated trade, and that's the first step really towards Red Seal. So once the request for the trade designation has been reviewed and approved, we can begin building the connection between the learning pathway and that trade designation with the eventual goal of supporting commercial driving to get the Red Seal designation. So it's not going to happen tomorrow, but we're definitely moving in that direction.
Amazing. I know industry in general has been really looking forward to that becoming a thing. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are on it and that it is moving forward.
Absolutely.
And I mean, you guys kicked off in April and it's been 4 months, but how has the uptake on the learning pathway been since April 1st?
Honestly, it's been really great. We've had actually almost 1,700 people sign up for the entry program since April 1st. Yeah. And entry program is the first stage, of course, in the learning pathway. So historically, we're seeing between 3,000 to 4,000 people who are completing MELT per year. So I would say we're trending slightly above average for just shy of 4 months.
Great. And there's a lot of information. You shared a bunch today, and we'll cover a little bit more after this. How can people learn more about the program and what it takes, all that jazz?
Absolutely. The best place to go is to the alberta.ca website, Class 1 Learning Pathway page. There's tons of information there about what the program is, kind of how it works, links to some really cool sort of day in the life videos as well. So there's lots of neat information for folks to look at. If the person is a learner who's interested in maybe taking on the learning pathway, they could also visit like their friendly neighborhood Class 1 training school to understand what their training offerings are.
Awesome. And if anyone out there is interested, I'm sure the government resources and AMTA SMEs can also help you out to find some great driving schools. And as for the day in the life videos that Alexandra mentioned, I can vouch that they were super well done and really shine a light on industry. Also, the URL that Alexandra mentioned, we are going to have that in the show notes for you guys so you can dig up some more information. Alexandra, that's kind of it for today. We just kind of wanted an update to see how things are going. Stoked that uptake is going really well for you guys. Is there anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, I would actually love to shout out our grant program, which is part of the suite of the Class 1 Learning Pathway changes that we've made.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the Class 1 Learning Pathway Grant Program, but specifically under there, we've got the Employment Pathway Grant Program. And so I would recommend any employers who are looking for Class 1 drivers, check this out. We can also provide the URL as well, so you can find the link directly to there. And the Employment Pathway Grant provides funding to support workforce investment, including training and onboarding funding. So that means that eligible employers may be able to access funds to train or hire new Class 1 drivers. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Nice. It sounds like a great step to help people get into industry for sure.
For sure.
As mentioned by Alexandra, that URL will also be available in our show notes for you guys. Alexandra, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and sharing this information.
Thank you so much.
Also fresh on the minds of industry in today's commercial transportation world is safety and technology. To that end, AMTA released a more than 400-page book of just that. So let's learn some more. For this segment, we're joined by Dave Elniski, Industry Advisor, Safety and Compliance. Many of you will have heard from Dave before on Steering Change, and today we're utilizing his skill and knowledge to talk about trucking present in Alberta. Dave has recently authored a book, Pro-Tech and Proactive, Understanding and Leveraging the World of Safety Technology to Move Beyond Compliance-Focused Safety Management. The book, created to help carriers, safety professionals, safety technology and management product and service providers, insurance companies and their brokers, government representatives, both elected and staff, and other interested individuals understand the complex world of fleet safety management technology and related safety management practices. Dave, thanks for joining us today.
No, I'm happy to be here, Kelsey. Thanks for having me.
Always happy to have you, Dave. Let's discuss trucking's present, and we'll start with Pro-Tech and Proactive. Why this book and why now?
Alrighty. Well, it is definitely a timely topic. I guess why the book, anyways. This all started just with a lot of questions that we had internally at AMTA on safety technology, just as a general concept. It's more and more in the headlines. It's more and more in the news. It's more and more something we talk about day to day. And it's more and more something that carriers are aware of. And there's more options, and they're being bombarded by suppliers of different products and services. So it became something that, okay, we want to learn a little bit more about it and develop some institutional knowledge. And, the questions were broad and kind of, let's talk about the effectiveness, the efficacy. Can we talk about return on investment? Can we talk about the types of technology? And by the time I kind of had my marching orders, I guess it was, we're kind of in book territory. So it just made sense to kind of put it together in that kind of a package, similar to the shorter book on like psychosocial hazards. And then from there, we could probably do all kinds of stuff with it. It's a standalone thing, I guess, but also kind of a starting point, I suppose, for us and the industry just to learn more about this topic, but in a way that's tailored to the industry. It's not from a specific supplier. And why now? I mean, it's not something we can really ignore. It's something that, like, safety technology as a concept is just too big and pressing and all over the place to not have the ability to speak to intelligently as a safety association. So as a safety professional myself, I don't have to be an expert perhaps in any individual technology, but I do need to kind of understand what's out there. I need to understand where they fit in a compliance-based program, where they fit in, a more proactive safety management program, because, the regulations may not really change at the same rate of speed, but there's so many more tools out there. We just want to see where do they fit and what brings the best value to companies. So I think really, yeah, started with the questions, and then just the fact that we see so much of it, figured that this would be the time to put this out there.
Amazing. And you did kind of touch on this a little bit, but the book does cover several topics related to safety technology and safety management. Can you kind of delve more into the why of that?
Yeah, for sure. A large part of it, probably close to about half the book, it describes types of safety technology in general, non-proprietary language. So, individual like OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, companies that build trucks and stuff, or suppliers of products or services will use different language at times to describe similar or different or identical things. So right away, that is a pressing challenge. Is just, well, how can we even speak about safety technology and fleet safety management if lane keep assist and lane departure warning, like they're not used consistently. So we're not trying to say that we are the authority on this language, but part of writing this, part of my task was going through, okay, how can we categorize these different types of technology, not specific to suppliers, but specific just in more general categories, provide a description so that people have that baseline understanding, a place to go where they can kind of, okay, that's what that system does. And also understand that the language used will vary in the industry because it's largely non-standardized. So that's a big part of it, just description, just different. And it's broken down by technology that's in vehicles, technology that's more office-based to help manage a fleet, and then with the technology in vehicles, technology that perhaps assists the driver and warns the driver, and then also technology that can also operate the vehicle's controls. So, it's kind of divided out that way too, just to provide another layer. So part of the book is just describing tech safety technology and reviewing the language and kind of comparing different types of technology and software, and also the management systems needed to support them, which was an important inclusion because very, very few types of safety technology can just be purchased, like installed and then be effective. Some can, like for the most part, something like automatic emergency braking, you buy a vehicle that has that in it. It works when it's needed, the end. So you basically, you can pay for it and see the benefits, kind of. But most other forms, do require active management. The driver will have to be trained. The office staff will have to be trained on how to use it. Like, it might give you data, but then the company has to have the competencies to interpret and use the data to make better decisions. So there's also a section on management practices within a safety, like a fleet safety context, and to kind of describe, okay, this is important too. This is very, very few things in the safety technology world. Even sometimes they're advertised this way, but it's not the case that they can generally just be purchased up front and then be effective. There's going to be ongoing efforts required from either consultants, staff, and additional investments typically. So that's like the biggest part of it. Then I have a section on efficacy, so how effective it is, and also a section on return on investment, because originally that was probably what some of the people asking the question wanted to know the most of, is can we demonstrate quantitatively with return on investment figures that buy safety technology and see benefits. But what I found is in the interviews done with what I'll call like fairly sophisticated large trucking companies that are using all kinds of safety technology with success, return on investment isn't a good metric. So the section on return on investment is more about navigating that type of information, what it means, the relationship between finances and how effective the safety technology is, but with the message that you need to focus on efficacy. And then, the efficacy section reviews existing literature, like existing information on different types of safety technology to kind of show at a higher level, what is effective and how, and what were the studies like, and references to external sources. People can go for more info. And then kind of throughout the whole thing, there's also just there's just discussions on compliance focused safety management and then more proactive safety management, what the differences are between them and where they kind of fit. So that would be, that's kind of how it's more or less organized anyways.
Awesome. And we are going to come back to that return on investment, but I do want to, earlier you had spoken about language, and we're looking at a book, it's over 400 pages, and maybe this is more of a statement than a question, but you made it very reader friendly. It's easy to read, you want to read it. It's not super technical like a textbook. Was that intentional, or is this just a Dave Elniski talking to the people?
That was somewhat intentional. I mean, like, part of it is like, yeah, like the writing style is meant to be accessible, but at the same time, I mean, it was kind of tough, really, to be honest, to strike that balance, because I mean, it can get very technical with it. And there's an audience for that. You can super high level, and there's an audience for that. And part of it is there is no format this book could be in, even just being a book, that would satisfy all different audiences. So it kind of decided, well, really, what's the AMTA's role? Who should we be speaking to? And a big part of it is, we can kind of, we're not the government. We're not a supplier of safety technology. We are about as unbiased and third parties you can get in this regard. And this is just some of the service we offer. And who are we offering this to? Well, the industry itself. So people who would be in a position to purchase, make decisions. So tried to keep it kind of accessible for the general carrier management and safety professional audience. And then part of that too, when, originally this thought, well, this might be like a white paper type of document, and then it grew into a book. I kind of went back to, at that point it was quite fragmented. In some ways I still feel it is, but like it was kind of like all these different things, and I thought, well, how can we tie this all together? So part of it was also adjusting the language to make it a little bit more readable like a book, so that somebody could pick it up and go cover to cover and and see that, okay, yeah, no, it does kind of follow. There are themes throughout. So depending on how a person wants to use it, there's a lot of different options.
For sure. I don't know if any writer ever feels their work is completely done, but you crushed it. So let's go back to that return on investment. You don't seem to encourage carriers to use return on investment information as the primary way to decide on what types of safety technologies and safety management practices to put into place. Why is that?
The biggest reason why is that it just adds unnecessary complexity. Return on investment is about financial performance. So it by itself, return on investment is a measure of effectiveness. It is a measure of efficacy. It's telling us if I put money into the stock market, an investment, a casino, whatever it might be, how much I get back. I can calculate, well, what my return on my investment was. And then in that context, it's an excellent measure of efficacy, because it'll tell me if I made money, lost money, and I'll know how long it took for that to happen. But all the safety technology is not measured from an effectiveness perspective on financial metrics. Instead, we're looking at reductions in collision rates. That might be, that's kind of a metric that we might use for a lot of them, or reductions on injuries, or perhaps a safety technology is designed to streamline a process. So a better metric is staff time saved or something like that. Those are the measures of how effective the technology actually is. And when we apply return on investment to it, what we're doing is translating information on efficacy into financial language, probably making a lot of assumptions along the way, like, well, how much do we think a collision costs? What is the average this, the average that? Then the carrier audience can then take this, return on investment information, then they have to translate it back into their own operations to then kind of get an idea for how effective it might be. So that's the main reason why, just unnecessary complexity. So instead, I would say if you're looking at if you want to reduce a type of collision, for example, the frequency it happens in your organization, well, first of all, the carrier should know their own numbers. How many of that types of collision they had, should be able to better estimate their own direct costs related to the collision, as opposed to probably standard government figures or, just presumptions anyways made by a supplier to kind of estimate return on investment. So if they can get information on safety technology saying, well, this system will reduce this type of collision by 15% in a 12-month period if done this way, a carrier should be able to take that, look at their collisions, say, okay, well, if I know how much my collisions cost me in 12 months of that type. If I see 15% fewer of them, I can now do the math to figure out my savings, and then figure out my own return on investment if I want to do that. So that's the main reason. There's return on investment. It'd be like me speaking in one language to someone who also speaks the same language, but we're putting it through Google Translate into a second language and then back to that. It's not really necessary. But the other reason too is that, the companies I talk to, none of them, some of these are publicly traded, some of them are privately owned, all of them for-profit carriers, none of them use return on investment to really measure safety performance. It often gets tracked. Some of them track it after the fact, The only way I ever heard it actually described as being, yes, we use it, is if there's comparable options for a product or service, and then they use it to perhaps sort which is best, but they're focused on efficacy. And part of the reason why is that these companies, like return on investment can be really hard to use reliably because, well, over what period of time? And there's so many different factors that take place that if we just focus on what makes something effective, if we know we're reducing collision rates, well, first of all, that's the right thing to do anyways, regardless of the cost. But then also reducing collisions and less downtime will result in a more profitable operation. That's a pretty safe presumption to make. So really, if that we could just focus right on the safety specific information, and these companies would generally trust that, yeah, this is financially viable, or it's the right thing to do. In fact, one company, what they do with their safety technologies, that part of their reporting to their shareholders is they do a comparison between, here's the things we're doing in safety, and they take some of them out and estimate their profitability if they weren't being as proactive. And they do this to demonstrate to their shareholders that, look, the money we're spending in safety is making us money. So if we were to spend less and maybe see a financial benefit over a quarter or a very short period of time, it is actually very detrimental to our operations. So it's just too complex to really be able to say, yeah, you're going to get a 50% return on investment for this thing without knowing a lot of other information.
Amazing. Thanks, Dave. And I'm going to start winding down, but I'm going to lob you a pretty loaded question here. From everything that you've mentioned that's included in ProTech and Proactive, what else are carriers and fleets facing in today's commercial transportation industry related to the contents of your book?
Well, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, really, I don't know. Like safety is so tied to every other aspect of how a company operates that really any carrier's challenge that's not even safety specific related probably has a relationship to safety performance. It might be partially solvable through, using safety technology and the right management practices to go along with it. So if we look at driver retention, for example, a major concern for carriers and recruitment as well, generally speaking, drivers want to work for a safe company. You want to have a safe reputation, and that's not something a company can generally. They have a hard time. You can have a hard time manufacturing that self. You might be able to convince shippers and people who view your website, but the drivers themselves, and then the other drivers that they talk to, as myself as a long haul trucker, those kinds of conversations, that's where you find out, oh yeah, no, that company is good or not good, or, so this is one way to kind of demonstrate, for example, so you invest in safety technology intelligently, you can show people that, yeah, we support our staff. So, it kind of has relationships to things like that. Compliance is constantly, compliance requirements are complicated as well. So there are, there's software in there. So when compliance requirements change, for example, there are solutions, safety management related and technology related that a person can use. So there's a relationship there. And a lot of the safety technology is built on, challenges that companies face, I suppose, is that, for so many, their profit margins are so tight that, they really have to be very careful in how they spend. But it's probably the case for many of them, though, that they still do need to be spending proactively if they want to see greater benefits down the road. So hopefully, really any carrier, any person in operations, even not within safety, that would read something like this would ideally come away with a takeaway that, okay, it's not best to just minimize initial spending always when it comes to safety. There's things that if we do in a measured way, probably see greater benefits down the road. So I think that, concerns related to maintaining compliance requirements, retaining drivers, even general profitability, there's all relationships between, the contents of the book and those other carrier concerns that aren't often considered to be like a safety specific concern.
So you encapsulated that really well without giving away too much. That was awesome. I just want to say I always appreciate the ease with which you can share information like this. So much valuable stuff for our listeners. So really appreciate you being here today, Dave. Is there anything that you would like to add?
I mean, honestly, no. Other than there's a lot more info in the book, so and it's freely available on our website. This is a knowledge sharing, it's a knowledge dissemination thing that we're doing. So that's really the goal. Is please, there's no hidden. This isn't behind a paywall or anything. This isn't targeted marketing. This really is like trying to help. So I really do encourage folks to pick it up and read it. You don't have to read it cover to cover. You can pick it apart, take what you need. So yeah, there you go.
Bring your Post-its so you can mark pages. You can print it off, put some notes in the margins, all that fun stuff. As Dave mentioned, listeners, ProTech and Proactive is available free of charge on amta.ca under our resources tab. So definitely give it a read. And Dave, once again, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
And that, my friends, is a wrap for episode 2 of our Trucking Past, Present, and Future series. If you listened to our episode where we visited the past and have any industry stories of your own, we would love to hear them. Reach out on our Instagram at AMTA_CA or LinkedIn and Facebook at Alberta Motor Transport Association. We will see you on August 15th when we look ahead to the future of industry in Alberta and wrap this series up. Stay safe and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of AMTA's Steering Change Podcast. The views expressed by guests of the Steering Change Podcast are their own and may not reflect the views of AMTA, its hosts, or sponsors. Did you have a question that you would like answered on an upcoming episode of the Steering Change Podcast? We want to hear from you. To submit a question to the Steering Change mailbag, hit up our DMs on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram with the hashtag SteeringChange, and your question will be answered either live on the podcast or by one of our SMEs here at AMTA. We ask that you share this episode with those in your network that could benefit from what we discussed today, and make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you can be notified when future episodes are released. You can learn more about us and our mission by visiting www.amta.ca. Now get out there and have a safe day.